Time to look back at Week 9 of the 2017 NFL season. I'm going to shake things up a little bit, and we're going to kick off with the 4th and 10 segment. Let's get to it. Currently, instead of worrying about winning Sunday's game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, AJ Green was more concerned with taking Jalen Ramsey to Suplex City. While I appreciate AJ Green taking Jalen Ramsey, not once but twice, to Suplex City and showing him he is no punk-ass bitch, you must find a way to better control your temper, especially in what was potentially a winnable game for the Bengals in a season that is slipping away from that team. So after Jameis Winston pushes somebody in the back, which, believe it or not, was his best play of the day this past Sunday, Mike Evans comes rushing to his quarterback defense, and all brouhaha broke out on the sidelines. There was something about this past week, and there were fights everywhere, Arizona, San Francisco too. But I will say this, while the Bucs have been a massive disappointment now at 2-6 after the Saints beat them in on Sunday, and Jameis Winston hurt his shoulder again, and he's had a bad, forgettable year. Mad respect to Mike Evans, because he's showing you as a star player that he's got his leaders back, his quarterbacks back. Mike Evans is the type of guy that you want to go into a foxhole with. Mike Evans is the type of dude that doesn't care. He clearly doesn't care, because he came in and he bulldozed Lattimore. He didn't give a shit. It was hard to know exactly how the Atlanta Falcons would respond after that Super Bowl choke job coming into 2017. I wasn't nearly as high on them as a lot of other people were. And so far, I've been at least somewhat validated. The Falcons got beat this past Sunday by the Carolina Panthers. They sit at 4-4. Why has this happened? It's very simple. Matt Ryan hasn't been as effective or efficient. This offense is struggling to find a way to get Julio Jones involved. Could you imagine? How could you structure a game plan around not being able to find Julio Jones and get him the damn football? A defense that still is young and with speed, but really, frankly, isn't all that good. They've lost some close games. Frankly, the thing about it is, if the Falcons had any more bad luck, they'd be 2-6 right now. The truth is in the NFL, we can talk about Super Bowl choke job narratives and this and that. The simple fact of the matter is, it's really hard to repeat success from one season to the next. If we're a team last year that had Matt Ryan play at an MVP level, when the guy doesn't play at an MVP level, you struggle to get Julio Jones the ball, and your defense doesn't take a step forward, it's not hard to see how this is a mediocre, middle-of-the-road football team, which is exactly what they are right now. Heading into Seattle, with all the injuries they had on their offensive and defensive line, the Washington Redskins had absolutely zero business winning this past Sunday in Seattle. And lo and behold, they kept the game close, and late they found a way to win. The Seattle secondary had some mental lapses and breakdowns late in the game, and Kirk Cousins led his team to victory in a game that on paper, for all intents and purposes, they should have lost. While this Redskins season is probably not going to end up great, you at least have to give some credit to a guy like Kirk Cousins going into an adverse situation on the road, playing a tough game against a tough opponent in tough circumstances, and finding a way to lead his team to victory. If this front office does not pay this guy at the end of this season, they are clowns. Well, frankly, they are already clowns, but you need to pay the guy. Lock him up long term. No more games. He might not be the best, but he's a lot better than what you're going to find out there, believe me. The Oakland Raiders early on this season have been a major disappointment, a team that we might have thought could have been one of the real threats to the Patriots in the AFC. That has not materialized. Derek Carr was hurt, but Derek Carr has been up and down inconsistent. The defense didn't make much in the way of improvement, and Marshawn Lynch was more mediocre mode than beast mode. Well, the Raiders came to life Sunday night in a surprisingly good game in prime time against the Dolphins. He scored a couple of touchdowns and looked like he might be starting to finally figure it out and come to life. Maybe this is a turning point in the Oakland Raiders season, or maybe this is just an aberration, a flash in the pan, and what we've seen out of them throughout the course of this first half of the season is really who they are. I'm sorry, Houston fans. I know it's great and wonderful to win the World Series, but then less than 24 hours later, you see the franchise player, Deshaun Watson, go down for the year with a torn ACL. You know your Houston Texans are in a bad way. You already lost J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless for the season. Now the one remaining shining hope and beacon of light that you had for now and in the future is sitting his ass on the sidelines the rest of the year with a shredded up knee. And you found out what you already knew. Tom Savage sucks, and somehow a Chuck Pagano team managed to find a way to win the game. Because why? Because Tom Savage sucks. Period. That's a big blowout victories on Sunday. The Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles both going for 51 points against two teams that are thought of to have big-time defenses in the Giants. Even with some of the issues the team has had this year, they're still supposed to be a really good defensive unit. They weren't Sunday, and the Denver Broncos, who are thought of having an elite defense, and even with the offensive struggles they have, they're supposed to be able to keep their team in it, keep it close, keep it competitive. They were nowhere to be found in Philly on Sunday. And you think about it, the Rams are 6-2. The Eagles are 8-1. They are staring down the barrel right now of being the top two teams in the NFC come playoff time, getting the first round bye-in. In the case of the Eagles, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It just speaks to the craziness of the NFL and how unpredictable it can be, because honestly, who saw this coming? The Dallas Cowboys got a big victory Sunday at home over the Kansas City Chiefs. Zeke fed a little bit. Dak had a really good game. And now all of a sudden you look at it, the Dallas Cowboys are 5-3. You have the specter of the Ezekiel Elliott suspension hanging over the organization and what's going to happen there. But right now, as I look at this NFC conference and I look at the playoff picture going forward, the team that I think has the single biggest chance to unseat the Philadelphia Eagles is the Dallas Cowboys, because of the play of Dak Prescott, more specifically the play of that offensive line and Ezekiel Elliott. They, I think, based off divisional familiarity and the matchup, presents the single biggest threat to the Eagles right now. So Cowboys fans have to be heartened after a slow start to the season, being 2-3. This team's won 3 straight games, and it seems like they're really trying to find their rhythm and are starting to figure things out. And you just have to hope that Zeke suspension doesn't go into play, because if it does, it could potentially unseat this entire season for this Cowboys team. The most hilarious thing I heard on Sunday, and probably in a long time, was the report from Jay Glazer that when John Lynch called Bill Belichick about trying to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, and originally Belichick said no, John Lynch asked Bill Belichick what it would take to trade Tom Brady. John Lynch asked Bill Belichick if Tom Brady was on the trade market. I don't care how ridiculous you think that is. I think this is fucking awesome. I think this was a certified G move, alright? You're not going to trade me the backup quarterback. Why don't I ask about the Hall of Fame quarterback, the greatest of all time ever to play the position? John Lynch asked if Tom Brady was on the trade market. It's probably not that surprising that Bill Belichick decided he wanted to deal Jimmy Garoppolo to John Lynch, just out of respect for having the balls to ask if Tom Brady was tradable. Closing out this 4th and 10, we got the news this past week that Josh Gordon has been conditionally reinstated by the National Football League. While that doesn't make him immediately eligible to play, it does allow him to get back with the team and start practicing in a few weeks, be able to once again suit up in the NFL for the Cleveland Browns. And I sincerely hope that in what is effectively his last chance, that Josh Gordon gets it, that Josh Gordon has enough discipline to understand the privilege and the honor that he has of being able to play a sport that he loves. And I hope that that love of sport is able to overcome his love of stupidity, his love of bad decision-making, and ultimately his love of drugs. If Josh Gordon succeeds, I will be incredibly happy for him. If Josh Gordon, drops hot on another test, I will feel absolutely no sympathy whatsoever for him, because clearly it wasn't important enough for him to play in the NFL to keep his nose clean. Here's hoping he's figured it out. Here's hoping he's got his shit together. But here's also knowing and understanding that based off of his history, it suggests that if you believe that he's going to keep his nose clean, you could very well be disappointed. But let's hope he figures it out. Now let's talk about the winners and losers from week number 9. Let's start off with the winners for week number 9, and I got to go first to the Washington Redskins. All the injuries on the offensive and defensive line, a season that looks like it was starting to get away from the team. You have all the drama about Kirk Cousins and his contract situation. Going into Seattle, facing the Seahawks, felt like a losing proposition, and the Seahawks found a way to get the job done. So at least for now, it keeps them viable in terms of the playoff mix. And it was a good way for them to kick off what I believe is a really tough stretch of schedule for them with upcoming games against the Vikings and the Saints. They really badly needed to win this game, and they did. Then I look at the AFC South and the Jacksonville Jaguars and Tennessee Titans. It's in part because they both found ways to win on Sunday and keep pace in the race for that division. But it's also knowing that the Houston Texans lost and looked terrible doing so, and they're going to have Tom Savage or TJ Yates or some other scrub at quarterback the rest of the year. The Texans are effectively out of the mix, let's be honest, with Deshaun Watson tearing up his ACL. So the Jaguars and Titans, for as much as they get credit for winning, they really win because of somebody else losing, and it's starting to really shape up like a two-horse race in the AFC South. And then I got to go to the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that I thought had mediocrity to bad written all over it. Could have represented the end of an era with Sean Payton and Drew Brees in New Orleans in 2017. And all this team has done after struggling early is win 6 in a row. Their defense has started to come to life. The offense is playing efficiently. They've got a great 1-2 combination at running back with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. They're running the football with some balance. Drew Brees isn't making a lot of mistakes because he's not having the pressure to feel like he has to win games by himself. And it's amazing how that works. Now you're looking at the Saints, 6-2. First place in their division. They're also in the mix, along with the Eagles and the Rams, to get a first-round bye in the NFC playoffs. The NFL is freaking crazy, and nothing but respect to the Saints for coming out and proving pretty much everybody, especially me, wrong. And then, of course, we get to the losers, and I got to go with the Denver Broncos. You know, granted, I understand you started Brock Osweiler at quarterback. You had no real chance of winning. But the fact is, you went into Philadelphia and they boat raced you. This is now a Denver team that has lost several games in a row, and they've looked really bad doing so. And this defense that is supposed to be elite, that is supposed to be top-notch in the NFL, gave up a shit ton of points to Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. This season is really slipping away from Vance Joseph and the Denver Broncos very, very quickly. Obviously, the Houston Texans are big losers, not just because they're starting Tom Savage at quarterback. That inherently makes you losers. Not only because they lost that game to the Colts of all people, that also makes you losers. But honestly, after losing J.J. Watt and Whitney Mercilus to season-ending injuries early in the year, now you lose Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's not the Texans' fault. Stuff happens. But you have to feel like this team is really going to struggle to win many more football games this year, because what life could be left for that team in that locker room on the field? All of your big stars, all the guys you could have counted on to take you to that next step, are now gone for the year. I feel bad for Texans fans. I really do. You finally found your franchise guy at quarterback after a decade and a half, and of course he shreds up his knee in a meaningless practice. But to me, the biggest losers of the week have to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is an organization a couple of years ago, after drafting Jameis Winston #1, they decided they were going to ship off Lovie Smith because they didn't like the direction the team was going. They thought offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter was the right guy for the job. And this was a team that I thought and others thought had a chance to win that division this year, because it seemed like they were upticking in the right direction, and I was wrong. 2-6. They got housed by the Saints this past Sunday. Jameis Winston's shoulders hurt again. I don't know what the hell he's doing on the sidelines, trying to pick fights, being a dumbass. His team can't stop anybody defensively, and offensively, they are a massive disappointment. You look at a division that they should have been able to be right in the mix with an Atlanta Falcons team that is not very good, a Carolina Panthers team that is, to me, still just above mediocre, and a Saints team that is playing way above itself and way over its head right now. The Buccaneers should be in that mix. Instead, they're bringing up the rear in that division, and they look like they're destined for a top 5 pick. And at this point in time, I have to ask the question for the Buccaneers: how much longer can you try risking playing Jameis this year at all with the shoulder injury? Because this is a lost year now. And how quickly do we get to the point where we start to wonder if Dirk Cutter's job is at stake? Because based off of what I've seen from this team this year, Lovie Smith could have done better than this.